Here's what Todd did. He then tried to say that passing laws not allowing parents to trans their kids isn't small government. Isn't that big government, huh? Isn't it big? Hey, making murder illegal, why do you want a big government? It's that same kind of straw man. Watch him handle it. I'm liking this Vivek Ramaswamy Vivek. I hope I get it right. I'm sorry.
You got it right.
It was good.
He's a breath of fresh air.
And I think he might actually, I bet you we could probably get him on the show.
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it would be fun, actually. And he's giving not just the right answers, but he's giving the right approach in his answers.
Yeah,
which I think is
energy,
important.
too. He's also not 90 years old, so that's also fun.
He understands how to deal with the media. I don't think there's ever been anyone more adept at that than Andrew Breitbart, obviously. But his sparring with Chuck Todd this weekend, few topics, right? And talked about gender, talked about the FBI, all of these things that people would say are third rails, right? Oh, Republicans will seem way too far right if they talk about defunding the FBI or that children shouldn't transition. What I love is that this guy, Vivek, leans right into it, but makes sure that it's presented as the reasonable argument, which it is, which brings us to this week's installment of the Flying V.
It just works.
The V flies. So.
And it works. It's Vivek. It's his first name. Wow.
All right. So here's kind of some exchanges here. You have host Chuck Todd.
2 first names.
And look, if you have children, like I always say, this is a PG-13, okay? But if I see Chuck Todd one more time and don't address it, I'm not. So if they're watching, he looks like he has an old lady's vagina on his face. Like he just, someone told him this is a good look.
What are you
and those people don't care about you, Chuck.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
You'll watch the clip.
We're going to have to watch. Yeah.
So Chuck Todd came out swinging. Sorry, I meant objective journalisting, implying that Vivek was fanning the flames of division.
Your rhetoric can sound uniting, and your answer just now. But then you say the following things. The trans movement has become a cult. We need to abandon climate religion in America. I definitely find the idea of systemic racism revolting. I say this, how do you square those statements with unification? These are divisive times. This is a polarizing time. We're pretty evenly divided on these cultural issues. How do you unite the country when you're essentially denigrating the views of half the country?
Yeah, the views of half the country is that children should transition.
That's not true.
No.
But even if it's true, Chuck, you just made your own argument.
Right.
You denigrate the other half of the views of the country, and how do you unite people when you're doing that?
Here's the thing. 2 can play at that game, but here's the difference, okay? Half the country has changed the landscape of beer recently. Bud Light, that's half the country.
Yeah.
You try and act as though half the country believe that 6-year-olds should transition. Or you try and act as though half the country support abortion up until and including birth period. Or as though half the country actually know about the Paris Accord. Or sorry, the Kyoto Protocol. Yes, Paris Accord, and support the idea of completely eliminating fossil fuels and forcing everybody to electric cars. And they would like to see $5 gas across the country. That is not half the country. Say they started off and say, hey, why are you insulting half the country? Which they do, only they're actually referring to a much smaller subset of the country. 2 acts of deception that take place there. Ramaswamy fired back with a very good response. This is how you handle it, and made sure, left no doubt. Now, you're still going to have a percentage of people who don't agree with him. Those are what we call crazy people, leftists. But he made sure that anyone watching, and there aren't many people watching, it's Chuck Todd, but I'm just doing this for the sake of argument. He made sure that anyone watching, hearing his argument, understands that, wait a second, transitioning children is not a good idea and it's unscientific. Here you go.
Let's take the touchiest of those subjects right now on the trans issue. I think that when a kid says that I'm born into the wrong body, that my gender doesn't match my biological sex, more often than not, that is a case of a mental health disorder. That doesn't mean you disrespect that person. It means they're crying out for help. I met with 2 young women who regret the decisions they made, going through double mastectomies, one a hysterectomy, chemical intervention, now trying to teach kids across the country that when you're struggling inside, going through adolescence, yes, that involves some struggle. We live in a cultural moment today where adults are affirming that confusion rather than actually treating them compassionately. That's cruelty.
That was great.
Nice.
Beautiful. And you know what? Here's the thing. Most hosts would try to interrupt. He didn't give him an opening.
He didn't.
He kept going, very coherent. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't doing anything to make him go, okay, now stop.
Yeah.
right? And he tried to kind of at the end when he slowed down and he started to kind of finish his statement, but that's how you do it. If you sit there and go, it just leaves the opening.
Yeah.
The host comes
And
right
you know what else
in.
He stuck the landing with cruelty because that's
Yeah.
what's coming back.
Yep.
That's the argument that'll come back his way. Isn't it cruel?
Yeah.
Your position. Nope. I'm taking that position.
Yeah.
Now it's removed from you as a weapon.
That's a great answer.
Do you know what else he did really well? And you've heard me talk about this in the past because Chuck Todd, right, just threw up a laundry list, right? And he even threw up the umbrella like trans, pretty general climate change.
Yeah.
We talk about this, mixed martial arts, Pops Crowder. A really good fighter does what? Takes the fight,
To the other person.
takes it to where they're
To where they're strongest.
To where they're
Yeah.
strongest. So he went, let's take the most sensitive issue right there. Or I can't remember the term he used. He said the most kind of hot, the most controversial issue right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, so in other words, didn't just go, trans, because that could include Brittany Griner, that could include Leah Thomas, that could include Caitlyn Jenner. He went to the matter of policy and was specific where he knew very few Americans would have disagreement.
Right.
That's important. When they try and give you this broad generalization, right, paint you with this broad brush, you go, okay, let me take a scalpel and I'm going to pick my spot. So then now, right away, Todd is on defense. And what he tries to do, right, is isn't it hypocritical? They do this all the time.
Yeah.
So you don't like socialism? What about roads? What about the fire department, huh? They don't understand the idea of goods, commodities versus rights, as though this actually works. Here's what Todd did. He then tried to say that passing laws not allowing parents to trans their kids isn't small government. Isn't that big government, huh? Isn't it big? Hey, making murder illegal, why do you want a big government? It's that same kind of straw man. Watch him handle it.
What makes it compassionate, though, to pass a law that denies a parent making their own health care decision for their kid? That's the part of this. That doesn't sound very conservative and small government to me.
Oh, isn't that clever? Yeah, that doesn't sound so conservative and small government. Hold on a second. Parental rights mean that the parent has the right to tell their child not to transition, just like the parents have the right to not feed their child Captain Crunch if they want to make sure that they actually have a healthy breakfast.
Right.
Didn't catch Vivek because he replied very well.
Well, look, there isn't a state in this union that allows you to smoke an addictive cigarette before the age of 18, that allows you to get a tattoo before the age of 18. That's a body-altering change that a kid may later regret in life. So I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that if you're after 18 years old, you're free to decide whatever you want to do. That's what it means to live in a free country. But below the age of 18, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that we won't allow genital mutilation or chemical castration through puberty blockers
You're
for the
calling
purpose
it
of gender
that.
transition.
Okay, so
Chuck Todd, you can.
Nice.
truth.
Yeah, Your Honor, objection. On what grounds?
So what does he do
hurts
there?
my case.
I want to go on the record, though. I loved Captain Crunch.
I
Yes,
do too.
fantastic stuff.
The only thing is it scratched the roof of your mouth.
Did. You had to
burned
let
it.
it sit a little bit.
Well,
in
you
the
gotta
milk.
you gotta have patience and let
Yeah.
it sit in the middle.
I didn't.
No, you
Come
got to
on.
eat through the pain.
Yeah. There you go.
Your bloody gums and Captain Crunch.
Yes. It really was like shards.
I think we should have a deeper conversation about favorite cereals at some point. By the way, look, I want to address something with Vivek. There's people kind of blown up a little bit in the chat, and we understand, we're not going all in on this guy. And
No.
people are saying that he's maybe part of the World Economic Forum, that he did the Soros, Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship thing. But I'm not saying go all in for Vivek. We're saying that he handled himself really well.
We're saying this is a good way to handle the media.
Yeah.
Yes, they would do well to watch this and go, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Take notes, guys. That's it.
I get it. And by the way, if he comes out and he changes his positions, so remember Dan Crenshaw used to be on the show. We did the deadlift challenge, and then
Not anymore.
I called him to the mat on the red flag laws.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, the difference between that and the TAPS Act." And I said, "Hold on a second. They sound like the same thing. You can come on in there,
Yeah.
Pops Crowder. I know you got the a prostate the size of a grapefruit." So, oh baby, I got to pee. Aren't
there some HIPAA laws that protect me against
I don't
that?
know. Not in the days of the internet.
Nope.
So I understand what
right?
you're saying, but that was with Dan Crenshaw. And I remember that was a very uncomfortable conversation. And by the way, a lot of people got mad at me saying, why are you doing this to a guy who's now like we shouldn't be fighting? But I really had an issue with the red flag law support. And I remember he said, well, they're different. The TAPS Act is very different. I said, okay, how is it different? This is how I'm reading it. Tell me how I'm wrong. And he wasn't specific. And after that, I said, you know what? You have some splaining to do. So, of course, we're never all in on anybody. I'm just saying that this is a good example as to how you can handle the media. And it's this specifically, Carly Fiorina was that way too. She was just very good at understanding it. And by the way, I would never vote for her for president anymore. At that time, I liked how she handled the media. So Todd goes, okay, hold on a second. This is dividing and you are insulting half the country, right? That's if they can't paint you as dumb, they paint you as evil.
Right.
Right. So think about, and I'm not saying that I said, but George W. Bush, dumb. Dick Cheney, evil.
Right.
Donald Trump, dumb. Mike Pence, dumb. But the point is, Carly Fiorina, evil. Right. They try to do Ben Carson. It's dumb or evil. And sometimes they'll try all these modes of attack. So it's you're evil. You're dividing the country. Then it's hold on a second. You're a hypocrite. You're not small government. Everyone's a hypocrite. It's not about the fact that you're a hypocrite. It's whether you actually believe the standards of which you're falling short. So that's also a silly argument anyway. And now we go to, evil doesn't work. So let me try dumb. And Todd asks Ramaswamy, do you even know what gender is?
How do you know, are you confident that you know that gender is as binary as you're describing it? Are you confident that it isn't a spectrum?
I am.
You know this as a scientist?
More confident than you are about what's
You're not
in
a
your
scientist?
panties, Chuck.
Here we go. Exactly. You know this as a scientist?
Yeah. They always do that, right? Are you a scientist? Hold on, Chuck. Are you? So Ramaswamy pushes back right away with basic facts, again, that everyone can understand.
Well, there's two X chromosomes if you're a woman, an X and a Y. That means you're a man.
Lot
So
of
there's a
scientific
biological basis
research
for
out
this.
there. There's a lot of scientific research out there that says
Now,
gender
that's
is
a place I
spectrum.
disagree, but we'll go
Chuck,
on.
I respectfully disagree. Gender dysphoria for most of our history, all the way through the DSM-5, has been characterized as a mental health disorder. And I don't think it's compassionate to affirm that. I think that's cruelty. When a kid is crying out for help, what they're asking for is, you got to ask the question of what else is going wrong at home? What else is going wrong at school? Let's be compassionate and get to the heart of that, rather than playing this game as though we're actually changing our medical understanding for the last 100 years.
Now, I think he gave a good response except for one, and I've told you this. Do not concede ground where it is not necessary. If you go back and watch one of the first Change My Minds, or the early Change My Minds, where I would ask, what is a woman?
Right.
What is a man? Right. These were basic foundational questions that were necessary. How many genders are there? These were a series of questions that I would ask, because if I was debating someone who was saying, hey, hold on a second, sex and gender are different. Well, that existed within the binary. But are you saying there are 157 genders? Can you not define what a woman is? Right? These were basic questions. What is a woman? What is a man? How many genders are there? And then we would ask about, why do you think sex and gender are different? Sex and gender were not different until very recently. Do not concede that territory. Gender was really a grammatical term. Romance languages, gendered nouns. Pops Crowder, with French, it's very difficult going from English to French, because words that you would think are feminine are masculine, and it has nothing to do with masculinity or femininity. It has to do with how the nouns are sounded out, whether they are a masculine noun or a feminine noun. So James Lindsay even brought up this point, saying maybe you can and maybe you cannot explain sex, not gender, scientifically, but the point is that nobody actually has to. Don't play the game. Gender isn't real, sex is. Nobody needs to be an expert to know what sex people actually are.
Yeah,
and we've talked about this. It goes back to Simone de Beauvoir, goes back to Judith Butler, and then the John Money transgender twin studies, right, where they tried to say sex is biological, gender is a social construct. But even up until really the 1990s, it still existed within the binary, in the idea that, well, if gender is a social construct, you can have a woman born with a male brain, or the wrong brain born into the wrong body. Now, the science doesn't back that up, but they didn't say you could be born with the brain of any 157 genders, so the science falls apart even further. Cut it off at the pass. Say, well, you can say sex and gender all you want, but the truth is they're the same thing, and there are two, with some very rare limited exceptions.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that he said there that I really appreciated, and it's 100% true, is that it is not loving to lie to someone.
Never is.
It is not loving to lie to them. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to club them over the head with a truth 2x4. You can say it in a winsome way to someone. You can say that this is actually somebody reaching out for health, and he did a great job, like help, right, with mental health. But that's the real issue. It's not only is it not loving to lie to somebody, it's also not loving to do something that will ultimately be harmful to somebody who's asking for help.
Right.
People are crying out for help, and you're affirming something that will maybe be, one, it won't really change the statistics on attempted suicide, and two, it'll maybe be something they regret the rest of their life and will not be able to change in a lot of cases.
Right.
It will be done.
Right.
Right? And you're doing this to people who don't have the right to pick their bedtime.
No, exactly. They shouldn't pick their bedtime. When I was that age, I remember thinking I was at the I don't know if you had this in the States, but Pizza Hut used to be a sit-down place, and in Canada we had the Sunday bar
for it. Yeah,
did you have a Sunday bar?
Yeah.
And I loved those like strawberry preserves.
Yeah, very bad for you.
And they're horrible for you.
There's some sugar in that.
And I thought,
Just a little.
I'm not a scientist. But I remember as a kid,
You're not a
I
nutritionist.
remember one time you and Mom were there and we were in a fight, and I remember thinking, man, when I'm old, I'm going to show. I think you said, keep it limited, or you can each have like one go, as opposed to we would keep going back. And I thought, when I'm older and I live by myself and I have my own apartment or I have my own house, I'm going to have a big, because we couldn't have dogs because we lived in an apartment. I thought, I'm going to have a big dog. When I was a kid, I really wanted a cane corso. It's like, I'm going to have a cane corso, and I'm going to eat nothing but these strawberry preserves for dinner. And then, of course, we'll have television, camera phones. So I'll call my parents and they'll see me with my big dog and my strawberry preserves. That's how I thought when I was 9.
And that you wanted to be a girl.
That too, but we don't talk about that.
And you've never had strawberry preserves for dinner like that.
I don't even like them now. I like real strawberries.
Ours was Cece's, the little the powdered like pizza sticks that they were dessert sticks. I can't remember what they were called.
We didn't have
literally.
Cece's.
You would load up a plate into a pyramid shaped kind of thing so you could get as many on as possible.
Like a teepee?
Yeah, no, I mean just load them up and stack them up as high as you could go, and kind of you have to progressively get in so they don't fall off.
Yeah.
eating.
Oh man, I would destroy buffets.
Yeah. And then you have to go back to broiled chicken to make way for football
Yes,
season.
that was the problem.
Gerald, you were your own worst enemy.
I was.
Until your football coach in college gave you steroids.
It's
now,
a vicious cycle.
Needle dick.
Well, they wanted
Not
you
at all.
bigger.
yes.
They did. They're like, yeah, he's big. Can we go bigger?
For people who are new, okay, if you don't know this, and I'm going to go back to Vivek and
boy.
Chuck Todd. But this happened on air. Gerald played it, and by the way, Gerald is a really good athlete. He doesn't bring it, a fantastic athlete, okay? He didn't just go to Notre Dame. He was like the first pick to go. He was very, very good, okay? Till he blew out his knee. Sorry about that. But when he went there, I remember asking Gerald, like, how much did you squat? He's like, I don't know. I never really maxed out. Might have been like 575. I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah. I weighed and he's never squatted properly. He doesn't know how to lead. He's like, am I doing it right? And he's like throwing
you
the
put
bar.
this on your back
yeah,
or
he's
something?
spinning it like he's a
I
Harlem
bend down.
Globetrotters.
I bend at the knees.
Yeah.
Pretty
And then do I go
bar.
back up now? You can go back up now.
He was 275, okay, and strong and muscular, and his coach gave him what he believed were vitamins in a shrink-wrapped Ziploc baggie that he would have to consume in front of the coach, including on non-training days. Yeah. And he just so happened to gain 30 pounds on a 575-pound squat.
Oh, no,
That's not really the order of
I
things.
think I could have squatted more. I think I worked out.
Of course you could have.
like
You were on
505.
Of course you could have. You were on Anavar, bitch. Now.
Probably D-ball.
Yeah.
Hey, I never got the ripped steroid. Why did they keep that one from me?
They had him on halo testing. He's just like,
Oh yeah.
But they were shaped like barnyard animals, so you know.
Oh, that looks good.
And by the way, for
fun.
those wondering, I have when jiu-jitsu, these guys, so many guys use juice because they don't test in those competitions. So I know about all of them. And you would see guys come in, and within 3 months, it was like Beowulf, where he says, what was it? The dragon realized when he felt his grip, this was not the grip of a mere man. Like a guy who, I'd be, and then they grab you like, oh, you've done some drugs.
Yeah.
So I know what it feels like.
I had an Oklahoma wrestler once that was an absolute stone.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'll
if he
never
was
forget.
juiced.
It was scary.
He concussed me. He suplexed
Oh, that's
me.
a different level. That guy.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
No, I was talking about a tournament I was in.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, the guy who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Very, very, very nice guy.
Yeah.
Suplexed me hard.
Yeah.
So just an update on Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy.
He did sue the WEF, and he also sued to be taken off of that young fellowship list that we were talking about earlier. So, in the course of preparing to run for president as a Republican,
Yeah. Although,
I don't
by the
know
way,
if it was coincidental or if he really just wanted off the list.
there's nothing surprising about an Indian American. I'm going to sue.
Yeah, the control room basically said that young fellowship list is like Forbes 40 under 40. Because he was
okay,
put
all right.
on, and then he's like, I don't want to be a part of that, and sued.
Yeah.
Don't you make me go flying V on your ass.
Yes. Look. We roll the V. And I'm going to roll the V with my lawyer right up your ass. I'm going to sue. So Todd then tries to make an issue about health care. in general. So we've gone from gender affirming care with children to do you even know what gender is? In there was, well, hold on a second. It's not small government to say that children shouldn't transition to do you know what gender is? To now we've broadened it to healthcare. But the beauty is Vivek already went in specific, and then it's easier to broaden it because now you get to dictate the terms of engagement. Ramaswamy, Flying V, was having none of it.
If a parent is dealing with a child that has that may have these issues, trust me, the last thing they want to do is consider something like this. But if that is what they think could help their child pursue happiness or they're not to kill themselves, why take away that option? Again, why shouldn't it be up to the parent?
So part of why parents now suddenly feel that way, let's ask ourselves that, Chuck, is we've created a culture that teaches parents that they're being bigoted or that they're bad people if they don't actually take those steps. So part of what I think is, listen, gender dysphoria, for the rare few people who have suffered it, is a condition of suffering. My question is, why on earth are we going out of our way to create even more of it? And there's no doubt that the cultural movement in this country, even education, is creating more gender dysphoria. If it's a condition of suffering, let's not create more of it. That's what we're doing.
And here's the one thing is a limited amount of time, right? And this is the difference between that and a change my mind. This is an important question. If someone says, that's the last thing I want to do. The same thing they say with, of course I am not pro-abortion. I would do everything I don't like abortion. Why? If your child had an appendicitis and needed an appendectomy, would you say, the last thing I want to do is have to consider an appendectomy? No, you wouldn't. If your child had gangrene and needed an amputation, you would say, the last thing that I want to do is, no, you wouldn't. You would say, okay, this is something that I need. There's nothing bad about it. Why would you not support abortion if it's a clump of cells? What does it matter? It's like an appendectomy. Why would you say the last thing I would want to do is consider a sex change for my child? If it is, in fact, what is morally right, why would you say that? Just ask them this. Why? Why is it the last thing you wanted to consider? Then they have to answer, well, either, honestly, because of the complications, because of the fact that they could be wrong, because of the fact that children have lapses in judgment, because there's a huge number of people who detransition. Same thing. The last thing I would want to, I don't like abortion. Why? They have to answer it. And they either have to answer it honestly or say, well, no, I didn't mean that, in which case, okay, now that's on the scoreboard. And I hate to say scoreboard, but with something like this, that is important. Ramaswamy, I was
going to say the other thing is the healthcare argument.
Right.
And I just wanted to make a quick comparison for you because abortion is being framed as healthcare.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so killing your child in the womb up to and including birth is healthcare. Letting your child transition or do something like this is healthcare. Why shouldn't the parents be responsible for it? So let me just put those two things together. Can they kill the child at 6? What if that's considered healthcare? Because you've just said that this all kind of morphs into healthcare.
Right.
What if the mental strain of having a child is too much for the parent, and for their mental health, it would be better if the child didn't exist?
That is a legal reason, by the way, in many states.
Yeah, but your argument ceases to make sense when you take it to kind of this extreme, but not out of the reach of possibility of where they might go, because they said if you meant to have an abortion and the child's actually born alive, then we'll let the child die.
Right.
That's why I'm making this argument, because they're lumping that in with health care.
Healthcare. Well, I always get my HDL to zygote ratio tested.
That's good. Well, that was a little.
Although
niche.
apparently the triglycerides are more of an important marker. The point is, it's all healthcare these days, kids.
That's true.
So, and Ramaswamy actually does go into something that a lot of candidates don't want to touch on. And this is why I have a lot of respect for him doing this, because I'm telling you, political consultants, publicists, they would say, don't do this. And if you do it, be very, very broad. Don't be specific. He cites a lack of faith in driving what is the current level of despair and obviously mental health crisis in the United States.
I think I'm speaking as a member of my generation here, Chuck, but I think it's true of all Americans. We're all hungry for a cause right now in America. We're hungry for purpose and meaning at a point when the things that used to fill our hunger for purpose, faith, patriotism, family, hard work, these things have disappeared. So I see an opportunity to revive our missing national identity. I think that's something that Americans hunger for across the political spectrum, answering what it means to be an American today. You ask people my age that question, you get a blank stare in response.
Really important. He said our national identity. He can say it because he's not white. The left will have to allow him to say it because he's not white. Like I've always said, we are not a nation of a race of people. There are plenty of nations where that's the case. In ethnicity, a race of people. Now, of course, racial demographics do play a role in this country, especially as these demographics change when you're talking about people coming here illegally. But the problem is not their race. The problem is them not signing on to the ideas of the people of the United States. This is a country of ideas, and you have to subscribe to these ideas and these ideals to become a citizen. If you have not actually done the naturalization oath, if you haven't gone through it, I actually wish that most Americans here would have to do it. People who are natural-born citizens, because people who are legal immigrants who come here, they often have to have more appreciation for their country, if only on a historical and intellectual level, to understand what it is that subscribing to the American ideas and citizenship means. So he can say our national identity because he's, as Don Lemon would describe him, your little race or whatever. So that has been this week's installment of The Flying V. I'm going to the bathroom.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.